My name is Natalie, a 33-year-old woman living on my own in a cozy, little apartment. Today, I'm sitting at my dining table, staring at my phone as it buzzes incessantly. It's Liam, my fiancé, again. I can't bring myself to pick it up. He's been trying to figure out when he can meet my parents, and the thought of it makes my stomach twist in knots. His voice fills the voicemail. Hey Natalie, just checking in. We really should plan to meet your folks soon. Call me back when you get a chance. I let out a heavy sigh and glance around my apartment. It's modest, but it's mine, filled with bookshelves and a small balcony that offers a peaceful view of the city skyline. It's the perfect escape from the chaos that defined my childhood. Growing up wasn't easy. My father left when I was 4, and I can still remember watching him walk out the door, suitcase in hand, without a second glance. After he was gone, my mom became more distant, more irritable. It was as if I became the punching bag for all her frustrations. 3 years later, she remarried Vincent, a kind man who tried to fix our broken family. But his presence only made things worse. My mother's attention turned completely to my younger half-sister, Alice, the golden child who received all the love I never did. I'm jolted back to the present by another ring. It's Liam again. This time, I answer. Hey, Liam. I try to sound upbeat. I've been trying to reach you, Natalie. So, when can we meet your parents? His voice is light, eager even, completely unaware of my hesitation. I'm not sure, Liam. It's complicated, I reply, twirling a pen between my fingers. Complicated? It's just dinner, he says, his voice laced with confusion. I really want to meet the people who raised my amazing fiancé. I let out a dry laugh. You wouldn't say that if you knew my mom. She's a lot. There's a brief pause on the other end. Is everything okay? You know you can tell me anything, he says softly. I take a breath, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. It's just that my mom and I don't have the best relationship. She's always been critical of me, and honestly, it's nothing like your family. His voice softens, a comforting tone slipping in. I'm here for you, Natalie. We'll figure this out together. Maybe it's time to face this, he adds quietly, as if trying to reassure me. I know he's right, but the idea of exposing him to my mother's biting criticism and cold demeanor fills me with dread. Yeah, maybe, I murmur, not fully convinced. Let's talk about it later. I just need some time to think. Okay, Natalie, I love you. You know that, right? He says, his voice warm. I know, Liam. I love you too, I reply, before ending the call. As I set the phone down, my thoughts drift back to those painful years after my father left. I remember how my mom's world seemed to fall apart, and how her heartbreak turned into anger, often directed at me. One memory sticks out. I was 6 years old, hunched over my homework at the kitchen table, trying to concentrate. My mom paced back and forth, her face tight with worry. Natalie, can't you see I'm busy? Stop making that noise with your pencil, she snapped, her voice sharp. Startled, I froze. Sorry, Mom, I whispered, trying to still my hand. Not long after, Vincent came into the picture. He was different, kind, patient, but even he couldn't erase the divide between me and my mother. When Alice was born, I felt like I disappeared completely. One evening, I overheard a conversation between Mom and Vincent. She's just so difficult, Vincent. Nothing like Alice. I don't know what to do with her. Mom's voice was thick with frustration. The words hit me like a punch, and I realized then how little I mattered to her. My heart sank. Even at that age, I knew she was talking about me. Vincent's voice tried to soften the blow. She's just a kid, Megan. She needs your love. Not your disappointment. But my mom was relentless. She reminds me too much of him, she said bitterly, her words laced with venom. That night, I cried myself to sleep, overwhelmed by the painful realization that I wasn't the daughter she had wanted or expected. As I got older, the gap between us only seemed to widen. At 8, I excitedly brought home a drawing I'd done in school, eager to show her. "Look, Mom, I got an A on this," I said, my voice bubbling with pride as I held out my work. She barely glanced up. "That's nice, dear. Go show Vincent." "I'm busy," she dismissed, her voice cool and distant. But Vincent was different. He took one look at my drawing, and his face lit up. "This is fantastic. Natalie, you're really talented," he praised. And for a moment, his warm words filled the space my mother's indifference had left. But even his encouragement couldn't fully fill the emptiness. The years that followed blurred together in a haze of feeling invisible, an outsider in my own home. Mom was quick to highlight my flaws, particularly during my teenage years. Her criticisms were endless. "Don't slouch. That outfit is unflattering. Why can't you be more like Alice?" My teenage years felt like navigating a minefield, constantly tiptoeing, careful not to set off another round of criticism or disappointment. I was 13 when her words began to feel like they weighed me down, suffocating me. One evening, before a school dance, I picked out a dress I thought was flattering. I spun in front of the mirror, feeling a rare moment of confidence. "Mom, can you help me with my hair?" I called out, stepping into the living room, eager for her approval. She glanced up briefly from her magazine, her eyes scanning me, then her face tightened. "You're wearing that. It's a bit snug, don't you think? You should watch your weight," she remarked sharply. Her words hit like a physical blow. "I thought it looked okay," I stammered, my confidence crumbling in an instant. With an exaggerated sigh, she stood up. "Let me do your hair. Maybe it'll draw attention away from your figure." I sat silently, feeling small and ashamed as she quickly styled my hair, her hands cold and detached. School offered little refuge. One day, as I sat with my classmates at lunch, the topic of families came up. "So, Natalie, what's your mom like?" Janice asked casually, not noticing the tightness in my chest. I hesitated, unsure how to explain. Life at home felt increasingly suffocating under the weight of my mom's strictness. Even the simplest conversations could feel like walking through a minefield. "She's strict," I muttered, avoiding Janice's gaze. Janice, sensing my discomfort, tried to lighten the mood. "Hey, it's okay. Moms can be tough. Mine's always on my case about grades." I forced a smile, grateful for her attempt to relate, but deep down, I knew our experiences were worlds apart. As I grew older, the tension at home only escalated, especially as I began to show an interest in boys. One afternoon, I invited Carl, a funny, sweet guy from school, over to work on a project. We were in the living room, absorbed in conversation, when my mom walked in. She shot Carl a frosty look, then turned her sharp gaze on me. "Natalie, make sure you're actually studying and not just distracting the boy with your silly crushes," she said loudly, ensuring Carl could hear every word. I wanted to disappear. Carl shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the room thick with awkwardness. After he left, I confronted her. "Why did you say that in front of Carl? It was so embarrassing," I snapped, the sting of her words still fresh. Mom shrugged, unfazed. "I'm just stating the obvious, Natalie. Besides, boys like him aren't interested in girls with your build." Her words pierced me like daggers, and from that moment on, I became even more hesitant to bring anyone home, especially boys. During those dark times, I found some comfort in Vincent, who always seemed to understand. One night, when Mom was out, I confided in him. "Vincent, do you think I'm unattractive?" I asked, my voice shaky with vulnerability. Vincent looked at me, surprised by the question. "Natalie, you are beautiful. Don't ever let anyone, not even your mom, make you feel otherwise." His words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the years of hurt I had carried. By the time I reached my early 20s, my confidence, especially in relationships, had taken a heavy hit from my experiences with my mom. I remember dating Bruce in college, a genuinely kind guy who seemed to like me for who I was. Despite my reservations about introducing him to my family, I decided to take the plunge. The dinner at my parents' house started off well enough, with Vincent being his usual warm, welcoming self. But Mom was, as always, a different story. She had a way of delivering backhanded compliments that could cut through the air like a knife. "So, Bruce," she began, passing the salad, "what are you studying?" "Engineering," Bruce answered with a smile. "I'm hoping to get into renewable energy projects after graduation." "That's ambitious," she replied, her voice dripping with condescension. "Hopefully, you're not biting off more than you can chew, like some people," she added, glancing pointedly in my direction, a clear jab at my past academic struggles. My face turned bright red, and I felt the weight of the embarrassment settle over me. Bruce, trying to keep the mood light, chuckled awkwardly, but the rest of the evening unraveled from there. It seemed that every word I spoke was twisted into something to be criticized. As Bruce and I left, I apologized repeatedly. "I'm so sorry, Bruce. My mom can be difficult." Bruce gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "Hey, it's not your fault. But yeah, it does make things a bit complicated, doesn't it?" I knew exactly what he meant. The relationship eventually faded. It wasn't just about that night, but the way my mom's constant belittling had chipped away at my sense of self. It made it nearly impossible to feel secure in a relationship. A few years later, I met Liam. He was different, kind, patient, and incredibly supportive. Unlike the fraught dynamics of my past relationships, Liam made me feel truly cherished. Yet, despite his unwavering support, the scars from my past were always there, lurking beneath the surface. One quiet evening, as we discussed our future together, the weight of my memories hit me harder than usual. "Natalie, I love you, and I see a future for us," Liam said, holding my hands gently. "I love you too, but I'm scared," I admitted, my voice trembling. "My past, my mom, it's all so complicated. I don't want to drag you into my mess." Liam met my gaze, his eyes full of sincerity. "Your past doesn't define us, Natalie. It's a part of you, yes, but it doesn't have to control our future. We'll face it together." His words were comforting, but as the day to meet my parents drew closer, I found myself a bundle of nerves. Liam stayed optimistic, trying to reassure me as we drove to my parents' house. "It's just dinner, Natalie. It'll be fine," he said, his voice calm, though I could feel my stomach churning with anxiety. When we arrived, Vincent greeted us with his usual warmth, offering a small comfort. "Natalie, Liam, welcome. Come on in," he said cheerfully. Mom was in the kitchen, and as I saw her, a familiar tightness gripped my chest. She gave Liam a polite smile, but her eyes remained distant and calculating. "Dinner's almost ready. Why don't you both sit down?" she said, gesturing to the dining table. The atmosphere was tense as we all took our seats. Vincent tried to break the ice by asking Liam about his work. "So, Liam, what do you do?" Vincent asked, his tone casual. "I own a company," Liam responded with a smile. We specialize in environmental consulting. I saw a flicker of something in Mom's eyes. Was it interest or something else? It was hard to say. That sounds impressive, she said, her voice suddenly warmer. A company owner, no less. You must be doing quite well for yourself. Her words were laced with something sharp, and I felt a knot form in my stomach. The rest of the dinner continued in a similarly uncomfortable manner, with Mom alternating between subtle digs at me and lavishing praise on my younger sister, Alice, who wasn't even there. Every now and then, she would steer the conversation back to Liam, asking about his business and his future plans. Each time, I saw that same calculating look in her eyes, as though she was appraising him not just as a person, but for what he could offer, both now and in the future. As we left my parents' house that evening, a mix of relief and frustration weighed heavily on me. The ride home was silent until Liam broke the tension. Your mom seems a little too interested in my business, he said, his voice tinged with concern. I let out a heavy sigh, feeling drained. Yeah, she has a way of sizing people up. I'm sorry, Liam. This is just how it's always been. Liam squeezed my hand, offering quiet support. We're in this together, Natalie. Don't forget that, he said, his reassurance grounding me. The next morning, I was still reeling from my mom's cutting remarks when Liam's phone rang. It was an unknown number. I watched as his expression shifted from curiosity to shock, and a tight knot formed in my stomach. Wait, what did you just say? Liam's voice rose in disbelief. From the other end came a faint, muffled voice, deepening the mystery of the situation. Liam hung up, his face a mixture of confusion and anger. That was your mom, he said, his gaze locking with mine, serious and intense. My stomach dropped. What did she say? I whispered, dreading the answer. He took a deep breath, his words slow and deliberate. She suggested that I should leave you and marry Alice instead. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless. She said what? My voice trembled with disbelief. Liam nodded, his face hardening. She said you weren't right for me, that Alice would be a better fit. She was serious, Natalie. I stood there, frozen in shock. The idea that my mother would even suggest such a thing was unfathomable. We need to do something about this, Liam said, his voice low and firm, his jaw clenched. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about showing who she really is. His anger sparked something in me, and I felt the same surge of determination rise. We could record her saying it, catch her in the act, I suggested, my mind already working through the plan. Liam's eyes flashed with resolve. Let's do it. Let's expose her for who she really is. The plan was set. Liam would call my mom back, pretending to consider her outrageous proposal, and we'd record the conversation. That evening, we sat in my living room, the phone on speaker. Liam dialed my mom's number, and I hit record on my phone. Hello, Megan. It's Liam, he said, his voice calm but unwavering. Liam, darling, I'm so glad you called back. Mom's voice was unnervingly sweet. Have you thought about what I suggested? Yes, I have. It's an interesting idea, but I need to know. Why do you think Natalie isn't right for me? Liam's voice was steady, probing for answers. There was a brief pause before Mom responded, her tone dripping with false sweetness. Oh, Liam, you're such a catch. You deserve someone better. Someone like Alice. Natalie's always been a bit of a disappointment. My chest tightened at her words, but I stayed silent, letting the recording continue. We should meet and talk more about this, Liam said, his voice unwavering. Maybe over coffee? That sounds wonderful, she replied, her eagerness thick in her voice. Let's do that. I'll arrange a time and place. After the call ended, a whirlwind of emotions flooded through me: hurt, anger, betrayal, but there was also a sense of purpose. We had a plan, and we were going to expose her for the manipulative person she truly was. The next few days passed in a blur of planning and apprehension. Liam and I were determined to catch my mom in her game. He arranged to meet her at a downtown cafe, and I decided to be there too, disguised, so I could witness everything firsthand. The day of the meeting arrived, and I donned a wig and oversized sunglasses, making sure I looked completely unrecognizable. I sat at a table with a clear view of them, my heart pounding in my chest with each passing second. Liam arrived first, settling near the window, his posture calm but his eyes scanning the room. A few minutes later, my mom walked in, confidently sweeping her gaze across the cafe until she locked eyes with Liam. A smug smile played on her lips as she approached. "Liam, so good to see you," she said, taking a seat with the air of someone in control. "Thanks for meeting me, Megan," Liam replied, his voice even. "So, about your proposal." Mom leaned in, her tone shifting to something more intimate, her voice lowering. "I think it's for the best. Natalie isn't suitable for you. Alice, on the other hand, is perfect. She's everything Natalie isn't." The lump in my throat grew with each word. I wanted to scream, but instead, I sat frozen, my hands clenched tightly in my lap. Liam subtly glanced in my direction, offering a barely perceptible nod to signal the recorder was running. "But why are you so against Natalie?" Liam asked, keeping his voice casual, his questions calculated. Mom sighed dramatically, as if she were confiding in him. "Between us, I never really wanted Natalie. After her father left, she just reminded me too much of all the bad times. Alice is my real daughter, the one I care about." Every word felt like a dagger to my chest. My hands trembled beneath the table, and the air seemed to press in around me as I tried to hold myself together. It was a cold, heartless betrayal from the person who should have been on my side. Liam continued to keep the conversation flowing, talking about anything and everything to maintain the illusion of a normal chat while the recorder captured every toxic word. After about 20 minutes, the conversation began to wind down, with Mom looking unnervingly satisfied, as if she had won some silent victory. As soon as she left, I rushed to the bathroom, stripped off my disguise, and rejoined Liam, my emotions bubbling over. "I can't believe she said those things," I said, my voice shaking, tears threatening to spill. Liam took my hands in his eyes filled with sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Natalie, but now we have the proof. What do you want to do with it?" I took a deep breath, letting the sadness wash over me before it hardened into resolve. "We expose her, Liam, at the next family gathering. Everyone needs to hear the truth." Liam nodded, his expression unwavering. "We'll do it together. It's time everyone saw the real Megan." The tension between us was thick as we left the cafe, our plan now set in motion. We had a lot of work ahead of us, but we knew it was time to reveal my mother's true nature, especially to Vincent, who had no idea what was really going on. The day of the family dinner arrived, and the atmosphere was tight with anticipation. It was supposed to be a typical family gathering, but Liam and I had something far bigger planned. As we all sat down to eat, my mom, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction, couldn't resist revealing her triumph. "Natalie," she began, her voice dripping with glee, "I have some news. Liam has seen the light. He's left you and is now interested in your sister, Alice." The smug look on her face matched the widening grin on Alice's. It was too much. I could barely contain my anger as I looked at Vincent, who was frozen in shock, his fork halfway to his mouth. "What are you talking about, Megan?" Vincent asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. Before Mom could elaborate further, Liam shot me a quick look and winked, our signal. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and pressed play. The room went deathly quiet as Mom's voice filled the air. I never wanted Natalie. Her father left, and she just reminds me of all the bad times. Alice is my real daughter, the one I care about. Each word rang clear and cold, hanging in the air like an accusation. Mom's face drained of color as she realized what was happening. Her eyes widened in shock, and she looked like she might collapse. Vincent stared at her, his expression one of sheer disbelief. What is this, Natalie? Vincent's voice cracked, filled with pain. I stood, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. That's you on the tape, talking to Liam. You're telling him to leave me for Alice, saying how little you care about me. The room was silent, everyone processing the weight of the moment. Mom tried to interrupt, her voice laced with disbelief. Natalie, this is absurd. You're misunderstanding. I cut her off, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. No, Mom, I said, my words deliberate and calm. It's time you listen. I married Vincent out of sheer desperation. If it weren't for having Natalie, maybe I'd have found someone wealthier, smarter, someone with more promise. She's always felt like a burden. The words hung in the air, heavy and damning. The room fell into a stunned silence as the recording ended. Vincent turned to Mom, his face etched with a mix of anger and heartbreak. Megan, is this true? Did you really say all of that? His voice trembled, the betrayal clearly weighing on him. Mom, always so poised and controlled, was left speechless. The mask she wore for so long crumbled in front of us. Vincent stood abruptly, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. I can't believe this. After all these years, I had no idea, he said, his voice thick with emotion. He turned to me, eyes filled with regret. I'm so sorry, Natalie. For a moment, Mom seemed to find her voice, but it was weak and defensive. Vincent, I didn't mean it. It was just talk. You know how I get. But Vincent wasn't listening anymore. His voice grew firmer, colder. No, Megan. This is unforgivable. I need to think. Without another word, he turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind him. The room was still, a thick silence enveloping us. Mom crumbled, her composure evaporating, tears streaming down her face. Alice, usually so quick to react, remained frozen, her eyes flicking nervously between Mom and the door Vincent had just exited through. Liam, who had been standing quietly by my side, reached for my hand, giving it a firm, reassuring squeeze. You did the right thing, Natalie. I nodded, a weight lifting off my chest, but it was mingled with a deep sadness. It's over. It's finally over. In the days that followed, the fallout was inevitable. Vincent filed for divorce, his decision swift and final. I, too, made the painful choice to sever ties with both Mom and Alice. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was the only way I could start healing. Liam and I married in a quiet, intimate ceremony. Even Vincent attended, his tears a mix of sorrow for the past and a quiet support for the future. He was the family I needed, the one who stood by me through it all. As I stood beside Liam, I felt a profound sense of freedom. The dark clouds that had loomed over my life for so long finally began to clear. I had found true love with Liam, but more importantly, I had learned to love myself. For the first time in my life, I felt a deep, authentic happiness, unburdened and at peace.